The most common cause of hypoglycemia. What is hypoglycemia? Low blood sugar. Okay, what are the symptoms? Dizziness, cravings for sugar, lightheadedness, sweating, lethargy, and being irritable. Now, the simple version of how they diagnose this is if you're a diabetic and you have blood sugars less than 70 milligrams per deciliter, you can have hypoglycemia. Now, if you're not a diabetic and you're an adult, if your blood sugars are less than 50 milligrams per deciliter, you can have hypoglycemia. Now, one type of hypoglycemia is called idiopathic hypoglycemia. Okay, now idiopathic means unknown cause. So basically, they're labeling this hypoglycemia. We don't know what causes it. So it's a nice descriptive term. Another form of hypoglycemia is called idiopathic postprandial syndrome. Okay, now that's a fancy word for describing low blood sugar symptoms without actually having low blood sugar. Okay, and of course the word idiopathic, they don't know what causes it. And then the other diagnosis that sometimes people get is that it's hypoglycemia caused from adrenal fatigue. Okay, because the adrenal hormones, specifically cortisol and adrenaline, are counter-regulatory hormones. So if your blood sugars are too low, they will raise your blood sugars up. So they kind of protect you against hypoglycemia. But, I've done videos on this and I've talked about how the adrenals can cause hypoglycemia, but I really don't think that's the main cause, because if you were to have hypoglycemia and you were to focus on fixing your adrenals, you're usually not going to see improvement in your blood sugars. Okay, they're not going to actually come up to normal. So I think it can happen, but you would have to really have an adrenal gland problem where it's completely like shut down, where you might have a condition called Addison's disease, where the adrenal just doesn't work anymore. The number one cause of hypoglycemia is hyperinsulinemic hypoglycemia. It's a fancy term for you have high insulin and low blood sugar. Now, if you look up the cause of this, it'll say insulin injections, okay, if you're diabetic type 1, tumors, okay, autoimmune, certain drugs, especially diabetic drugs, and prednisone too, and genetics. But what they're missing is the big reason why you have hyperinsulin, okay? And that's excessive carbs. It's amazing. The number one cause for high insulin is not even mentioned, okay? Hardly anywhere when you look this up. Here's what happens. Large quantities of carbohydrates will then elevate your blood sugars at a certain level. And your body's going to then require large amounts of insulin to come in there to push your blood sugars down. And if it's too much force, you're going to end up with low blood sugars, hypoglycemia. All right, now we give this more time and we keep eating a large amount of carbohydrates. An average person in America consumes like 65% of their calories in the form of carbohydrates. So a lot of people are doing this. So if you do this over a long period of time, the body is going to protect itself by developing insulin resistance. So now we have a situation where the cells are not taking in insulin. Okay, that alone is going to jack up insulin more. At the same time, you're consuming the same amount of carbohydrates, you're getting so much insulin coming in, and the body's compensating for this resistance. So you may have normal blood sugars, but you may have lower blood sugars because of all this insulin pushing things down. And what is the main treatment for hypoglycemia? Dextrose pills, okay, sugar pills. So you're basically going to add more carbohydrates to fix your low blood sugar. Wow. Whoever is doing that doesn't understand this mechanism at all. Now, with more time, the pancreas is just going to go, you know what, I can't keep making all this insulin. And the beta cells that make insulin are just going to get exhausted, they're going to get tired, and they're going to retire and go to sleep and not work that much. So now we have less insulin. And now the blood sugars go up because there's nothing to push it down. And this is called prediabetes and actual diabetes. So that's the different phases of what happens when you start doing more carbs, end up with hypoglycemia, and end up with hyperglycemia. What do you need to do? If you're new to my channel, I put the link down below. Just follow the eating plan, and it can greatly help you. Hey, before you go, if you're benefiting from any of my content, I would love to hear about your success story. Please share it in the link down below.